Yeah, for some reason it just wasn't on. So, oh well,
Oh, sorry.
not a biggie. I was going to ask. So,
Oh, well.
how did you get into this wedding business?
Well, honestly, my first job out of college, the one that I got laid off from, I was working for a local marketing company that produced bridal shows and magazines for 7 different markets in the Southeast. So I grew up in like outside of Nashville, Tennessee, and the company that I worked for was in Knoxville. I had gone to college at the University of Tennessee, and my first job was for this bridal marketing company. And so I was like really thrust headfirst into the world of weddings. And during that time, I also got engaged and started planning my own. And so it was just like my whole life, and I really felt like I found my place. So
I can relate. I used to work in the wedding world for years.
Really?
Yeah, I was a videographer.
Oh, very cool.
So
I always encourage couples to get video of at least their ceremony. If they can't afford a professional videographer, like for my podcast co-host wedding, they didn't budget for one, but I brought my tripod and I set up her phone and I recorded the ceremony for her. And she was like, "I'm so glad you did that."
Oh, so kind.
So yeah, so she's happy to have that footage just because I think it's so special to be able to watch back on your anniversary and sort of like renew those vows every year and watch it together.
I used to, in fact, let me ask this question and then I'll see if I can tie it in. What is something that couples don't value very much before the wedding, but value immensely after the wedding?
I would say video, honestly. Video is something that I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, I wish I had budgeted for that," or just because there's nothing like hearing you and your partner say those vows to each other, I think. And then I think something that I've heard come up a lot is like, "Oh, I wish we had done like an extra late night snack or like had some other food or treat or something for our guests." Like people are always worried that the food isn't enough, that they haven't like fed their guests well enough, I think.
Interesting.
Which is interesting. Yeah. But
I like how you said, well, Liz, you had said this and Liz brought it back up and I totally, it struck I could relate to it where you said, every guest actually adds a lot more to the wedding, which is interesting. If you say it that way, it does make people think, oh yeah, it does. Like everything costs a little bit more. And I mean, I just remember when I used to work in the wedding world, especially early on when I was trying to figure out how to price my services. And I remember sitting in a wedding meeting once and looking at the price that somebody was paying for napkins. And I was like, gosh, I need to be worth more than the napkins that people are just going to be wiping their face with and throwing away. But it also related to like how much every guest does kind of add a little bit to the final cost of the wedding.
Yeah. Well, and also I think that something people don't think about is, not only could it potentially add up the cost, if you're looking at adding additional people, but also whatever budget it is that you have set that you have to work with that realistically fits within your financial means, if it gets stretched, that amount has to stretch across more people when you have a larger guest list. And so you can treat a smaller group of people to a nicer event, a nicer experience with a smaller guest list. So if your priority is, I want it to feel like a luxury, like high-end event, maybe you're going to have a smaller guest list to do it within your given budget. So it's a balancing act, I think. But something definitely to consider.
That's really good advice. That's really smart. Is there anything that your couples might regret, like not doing or doing after a wedding, where they feel like, oh, I spent too much on this, or I really wish I would have? I know you said video for one thing, but is there anything like where, like I remember people would get, oh gosh, I spent so much on the alcohol for the wedding, and it just doesn't really have any value.
I mean, and I wasn't sure. I was like, I know you guys are in Utah. I don't know if I should even bring up the alcohol thing or not. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think, the biggest sticker shocks are the cost of the bar, if there is alcohol provided, and also flowers. Flowers is a huge sticker shock to most people. And so, I do think that in hindsight, in retrospect, people are like, oh my gosh, we spent $5,000 on flowers and we used them for 6 hours and then they got put in the trash. Like
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
it's
gosh.
it's a lot of money to just kind of throw away at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, flowers are beautiful and they look amazing in photos, but the fake ones look just as amazing in photos, and they cost a lot less. So, and they're not getting thrown in the trash; they're getting sent back and reused by someone else. And so, I just love their whole business model. I think it's brilliant.
It seems like, Jessica, they might even look better in photos, right?
Well, yeah, because you don't have to worry
hours.
about them wilting or fading in the hot sun. If you're getting married in the middle of summer where the sun is beating down, you don't have to worry about your rose petals getting like burnt ends, or like hydrangeas that are like so delicate, like, the fake ones can look really beautiful and you don't have to worry about those things. So
bridal photos are a really big deal here, right? Getting your bridal pictures taken ahead of time.
Yeah.
So I can see where that would be beautiful too, right? You've got flowers for a week or so.
Our two biggest expenses, honestly, Jessica, were videographer and a photographer, and flowers. Yeah. Those three. Yeah. Expensive.
I think investing in good photography is important because that's obviously like the tangible thing that you have to take away from the day, and making sure you work with a photographer you feel comfortable with, but also produces, images that you love is super, super important. Yeah. It's very typically a very high priority, even among couples with like a lower budget. They might spend even close to half of their budget on a good photographer and then have a very intimate wedding, to offset that cost. But yeah, it's all about priorities.
Yeah. How do you prepare couples for their wedding planning? Like, I remember when my wife and I got married, and just being naive and thinking, oh, it's just, you could plan a wedding in like a month. It doesn't take that long. And just like wanting to pull my hair out after all the decisions, the colors, the plates, the this, the that, the that. How do you get people ready for like, okay, this is not going to be as simple as you might think?
I mean, there are books and books dedicated to the process. So you got to figure it's not a super simple thing. But it is, often, like I said, it's the first time and sometimes the only time people are planning an event of this size. And it's, it feels like very high stakes because it's like your one special day. And there's so many marketing messages around that I think encourage people to spend more money or, feel more stressed about the pressure being put on that one day. But I think like one of my biggest pieces of advice is to kind of put the wedding day in perspective of like your overall life. The wedding isn't the finish line. It's like the starting line for your marriage and your lives together. And that includes, financial goals you have beyond the wedding day, buying a house, expanding your family, like starting a business, whatever it might include or look like, depending on, the shared vision that you and your fiance have together. And so I think just having that perspective and stepping back and being like, what is this really all about? How much importance should we put on this day? Can we just keep it in perspective? And I think it makes navigating the planning process just a lot more calm when you can have that sort of like down to earth perspective on the day. Yeah. And then utilizing resources like my book, I think makes it a simpler process to navigate as well, because it encourages sort of that perspective and keeping things aligned with what matters to both of you and your values.
So. Sarah, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I was wondering if you've had much experience or many clients that have come in with a second wedding, or maybe one of the spouses, it's their first wedding, the other one it's a second wedding, and like what's that dynamic like, and how do you navigate that?
That's a really interesting question, and one I've been kind of noodling on myself because I have been divorced, and eventually one day might end up getting remarried. And so I do think that there's a need for resources about that because it's kind of a question mark that I have in my head as well. I haven't personally worked with any couples in that situation. And, I don't really work with couples on like a one-to-one basis in general. But, I think, no matter if your relationship is both of you getting married for the first time or someone entering, their second marriage, I think really that foundational layer, is all very much the same advice that I would give to anyone doing it for the first time. So getting really clear, that open communication, making sure that you're aligned on your values, not just for the wedding day, but for your lives beyond the wedding day. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
good question indeed.
Yeah.
Well, Jessica, thank you. We're up against the hour. I know we want to be respectful of your time. Thank you. Thanks for making time to join us today.
Of course. Yeah, no, it was great. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks for joining us today. Hey, do us a favor and take a few minutes to subscribe to our podcast and the Utah Marriage Commission YouTube channel, where you can watch this and every episode of the show. When you hit the like button and leave a comment, your feedback helps us improve the show. And don't forget to share this episode with a friend. You can also follow and connect with us on Instagram at Stronger Marriage Life and on Facebook at Stronger Marriage. Be sure to share with us what topics you want us to explore or what you loved about today's episode. If you want even more resources to improve your relationship connection, visit our website at strongermarriage.org, where you'll find free workshops, webinars, relationship surveys, and more. Each episode of Stronger Marriage Connection is hosted and sponsored by the Utah Marriage Commission at Utah State University. And finally, a big thanks to our producers Rex Polanis and Alexis Alcott and the team at Utah State University. And you, our audience. You make this show possible.
The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Utah Marriage Commission.